My name is Jasmine Turner, and I have had the absolute honor of getting to work with the adults this weekend. I have been so impressed by just how engaged they have been, how involved they've been, how much they show up for each other and support each other. I got a little emotional yesterday, and they showed me kindness, and they empathized, and they supported me. I loved you guys so much, and I'm just so proud of all of you this weekend. And I'm for that, okay? Now, it's time for some Q&A. I'm going to get us started. Well, actually, I'm going to have them all introduce themselves. I'll get us started, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. I want to start just by having each of you introduce yourself, say your name. If you know what kind of a DCC you have, share that. And where you're from. Let's do that.
I'm Sarah Melnick. I have complete ACC, and I'm from Mooresville, North Carolina.
I'm Sean Godasco. I have full ACC. I'm from Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
My name's Alana Davlin. I have partial ACC and I'm from Virginia Beach.
My name is Emily and I'm diagnosed with ACC.
My name is Victoria and I am from Minnetonka, Minnesota, and I have complete ACC.
My name is Shanza. I'm from Oakland, California, and I also have complete ACC.
My name is Ben Bloom. I am from Columbus, Ohio, and I have DCC.
My name is Aaron Pickover. I am from Detroit, Michigan, and I have partial ACC.
My name is Nick. I am from Huntsville, Alabama. I have partial ACC, I think.
Hi, my name is Alexa. I am 27. I'm from Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and I have partial ACC.
I'm William Furs, and I have complete ACC, and I come from New York.
My name is William McNeil. I have complete ACC, and I am from South Chicago Heights, Illinois.
Thank you. All right. As someone that got into this studying out baby DCCs, my first question to get us started, I would like each of you, if you want to share one thing. I know you have more, but one thing each. If you could tell our parents about our babies, one thing, what would you like to tell them? Who wants to get started? Yeah, I'm going to give, if you need time to think, it's okay. But whoever's ready, I'll pass it over.
I would just say to have patience. And I know it's hard to be patient sometimes, especially when outbursts are happening. But we just sometimes, as someone with a DCC, we need time to like decompress and compose ourselves. So having patience is really big. And just compassion.
I would say to use the information, like, research is great. I'm not saying that, but like the stuff that your doctors say, and all of that, you use that as a guide, but don't use that as like the permanent thing that your kid can do. And let your kid do all that they can do and want to do, and encourage them to do that, and prove them and help them prove everybody wrong.
I would say patience and definitely understanding.
I would say be kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your child. Everybody's going through something. And if we're down here, we will get here. It may just take us some time.
I would say expect the unexpected. So if they aren't doing it right now, they may be able to do it later on. Yeah.
to add to the being kind to yourself, but also have an understanding that you can actually be the greatest force in your child's life. It's not an easy thing to do, but they are going to sometimes want to talk to you. Allow for them to have that moment to talk and to be, if they are feeling something, let them have that outlet with you.
I would like to say, because I'm an advocate for people with disabilities, and one of the things I always say to parents, let your children learn from their own mistakes, but if they look to you and say, can you help me? Help them then, because that's the only way to keep their mind going.
The only thing I can really say, I mean, all these other individuals that I love to death, they have pretty much said anything that would have gone through my head. So I really can't say much more because they've explained it for my feelings, for their feelings and all that. So thank you.
My parents, I'm 77 years old. So therefore, my parents are deceased. But if it wasn't for my parents when I was born, I would not be the person I am today, because in the first 16 years of my life, I went through all kinds of stuff because my parents understood what I had.
If it wasn't for my diagnosis when I was 9 years old, of trying to figure out what was going on with me, then we would have needed more help and helping me to what I was going through. And, so just, be patient with them and through, difficult times, struggles.
I missed anyone that wants to answer this? One more thing.
My dad's here with me. My mom's actually home with my nieces and nephews. Thank you, Dad, for everything you do.
I also want to say, my other advice would be to take care of yourself too. That, even us still need our parents, maybe not in the same capacity as we did when we were younger, but, we still need our parents.
Very good point. Thank you for that. All right. I want to open it up to you guys. If you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll kind of point to you and you can come up and use the microphone here. Yes. Okay. Come on up.
Okay, this is for anyone who wants to answer. What kind of challenges have you found yourself going through as you grew up?
For me, school, I hated school. Point blank, reading, writing, and math was probably my roughest subjects. Grateful I have parents and two brothers and a sister that was able to understand me and help me with some issues. And I used to bite my sister a lot when I was younger. I'm glad that she took it like she did, and I have two nieces and two nephews that are kind of like I am when I was their age. So definitely school was probably the hardest subject for me.
I would say the biggest challenge for a lot of us with DCC is that people so often underestimate us, or they think that we won't be able to do something before even allowing us to try. Yeah. And I feel as though our parents are that biggest kind of like cheer squad, I would almost say. He would be the best way I would describe it. Because without you guys, we would not be where we are today at times.
I would say the biggest struggle for me was getting babied because yes, I do have a disorder, but it doesn't make me any different. It may just take me longer to get from point A to point B. And I just needed a little bit of patience and compassion and trying to get my parents and just the general community to understand that.
And I think the biggest thing for me was proving people.
One of the things with me was I felt when I was very young that I had something wrong with myself, and I tried to get my parents to get me to some sort of medical person that could help, and they didn't do anything until I was like after school. So my whole schooling, and I'm very sorry, my first time I was diagnosed was in England by Dr. Brown's colleague over there. Sorry, I keep forgetting the name of him, but he was one of the founders of the ACC research. And then I came over here and my father suddenly said, would you really like to get it really put in stone? And I said yes. And so my father asked my sister to do the research of who the guy was up in Scotland. I'm sorry to say at the university that William met his wife. Prince William met his wife. But then we were introduced to Dr. Brown, and then I was done there. And I'm really happy now to really realize all the time that I've had some difficulties and that why I had it.
I think like, the basic difficult challenges are like trying to do chores and trying to remember to do chores each day. Cause like there's times where I get myself crammed with doing chores and trying to make sure I'm doing them on time and, and especially trying to do like the indoor chores and the outdoor chores. And if you don't get them done on time and, or even trying to do like with the laundry, so for some of us, we actually, either leave or clean laundry somewhere and, for days, but like I try to make sure I put a piece of paper on there in the laundry basket and just say clean every day. So then once I'm making sure of having that, then I'll be able to see that it's clean, and then I'll be able to put it away when I'm ready to put it away.
Sorry, hand up. I'm stealing that. As someone that also forgets about clean laundry in the dryer, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use a Post-it note. Thank you.
When I was growing up, I grew up in the 50s, and there was no such thing as ACC. So therefore, I was treated as a child with a brain injury. So therefore, my first 16 years, I was treated as a child with a brain injury. So therefore, all of the diagnoses and all of the treatment was basically geared towards a child with a brain injury. And it is totally different nowadays. So therefore, I grew up in a totally different system that no longer really exists today.
Thank you. I know not all of you have had a chance to answer this one, but we're starting to get aligned. So are we okay if I move on to the next question? Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, no. So for those of you that have siblings, can you talk a little bit about how your siblings can have a good relationship with you and ways to mend if you've bitten your siblings a few times or, you've had, had problems in the past?
I have a lot of siblings. I'm one of 9, a lot of step siblings, a lot of half siblings. But in particular, me and my younger sister growing up, we had a rough relationship. She took on a lot of my outbursts. And my mom didn't have the best way of describing my brain to my little sister because I had trouble with friendships and I would kind of end up making friends with her friends and my sister would get irritated by that. And my mom told her I was missing my friendship bridge. That's a no-no. Don't tell that. Don't say that to your child. But as we grew, I think, one, having time and space in college where we're doing our own thing and coming back together and just she took her own time and like kind of recognizing where mom had kind of misguided her on my brain and like did her own research and like talked to me more like about what my brain's going through. So she came to a point of having more understanding and we've gotten a lot closer in our adulthood.
For me, I would have to say, I have a really good relationship with my older brother, Andrew. He's helped me throughout like, probably middle school, I think, because he's been there throughout the struggles too, and he's very understanding. But even too, growing up with a niece who's like a sister to me, throughout the years, she's like 8 years younger than me, but you're going through those struggles of growing up with her and trying to understand yourself and her, but having that difficulty of sharing stuff with her and trying to be the better person. And, it's gonna be difficult, having someone younger than you, because you were always that baby, the youngest of the family of 4. And it was a struggle, but I think we have more of a better relationship now as adults as we were when we were younger or in our teens, because, she's the world to me and I'm thankful I got to grow up with her. And, and come to find out she's going to be 23 this next coming month. And I'm thankful that I got to know her for 23 years. So.
I have a sister that's sitting right there, and my brother is actually not here today.
So my brother and I did not get along at all. He's a year and a half younger than me. So we were mixing friend groups, trying to figure that out. And now I'm 30, he just turned 29. And he looked at me the other day, he said, I get it now. He said, you were trying to figure out your life. You were trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B while trying to learn and make friends, and it wasn't easy. And I keep preaching compassion and kindness, and that's the best way for siblings to react.
I would say I have probably the best relationship with my brothers and sister. I'm the youngest out of 4. I'm kind of grateful that my sister dealt with my fighting habit. I have 2 great nieces and 2 great nephews from my sister. I'm actually the godfather of my youngest nephew. And I'm grateful that I have the family I have.
I have an older sister. She's 2 years older. She's my rock. Growing up, yes, there was some biting, there was some pinching, there was some hitting. Okay, there was a lot of all that. My parents got me to stop by letting her do it back to me. But I mean, now like I said, my sister is my rock. She has been through hell and back with me. She sees me, she understands me, she supports me, and continues to do so. One of the biggest things she has done is told me she's never leaving me no matter what I do. Like we can get in a fight, she ain't going nowhere. So yeah, I always have my buddy.
We'll do two more and then we'll move on to the next question, okay? Who we gonna?
I have a younger sibling that's like 4 years younger than me. And like we have our days and like the bad days, just like any regular siblings would have. But the best thing that he could have gave me and made me the happiest was giving me the best nephew and best niece that I could ever ask for. And my niece is actually here today to help take care of the younger generation and play with them, treat them as equals. So I couldn't ask for anything better than that.
Yeah, so I have a little brother. He's 3 years younger than me. I would say that when we were younger, he did not really understand me as well as he could have in his later adolescence. We did fight quite a lot. But what my mom did is she kind of explained it to my brother in an age appropriate manner. And then if I were not being the greatest person on the planet, she would distract him. So it would be a little bit easier for him to kind of just go off and play and do his thing while I was doing mine. And then later on in adolescence, we pretty much were best friends pretty much by that time. He backed me up, I backed him up if there was ever any issues. So yeah. And we're still best friends now.
Thank you. All right, next question.
I have two questions. Maybe the first one will be much easier. Our son has partial 17. His speech is significantly impaired. It's very hard to judge how much he knows, how much he understands. We sense that he knows that he's different. After this conference, we're thinking that maybe we should be telling him. So when you were first told, about your diagnosis, did it cause you grief and emotional trauma or relief? What was your first experience of finding out?
I would say that it was a bit of both to answer your question. It was, I would say, more hard on my parents, but it was harder for me to see my parents with that feeling because both of my parents do have learning differences. So when they were feeling that experience, it was hard for me to, I was grateful for finding out what was going on, but I was also very upset because I could see how they were feeling.
I was born with my tongue too long. So therefore, my tongue was clipped. And to this day, I cannot lift my tongue up to my roof of my mouth. When I was younger, 3, 4, 5, I went through years and years of speech therapy. I used tongue depressors, if people know what that is. I went through speech therapy for 15 years. And I had 7 teeth removed from my mouth because I had too many teeth in my mouth. So between the speech therapy and removing the teeth from my mouth and learning that I had a New York accent. No, to this day. Plus I also have small nasal cavities, which makes my voice very nasal. In 1974, they tried to close the flap in my tongue, and it was unsuccessful. So therefore, today, when people ask me why I'm nasal and so forth and so on, I tell them, since I grew up in New York, I tell them it's a New York accent.
I think for me, it was a relief because I could understand why I hate school so much. I hate my hardest subject, like I said before, was math, reading and writing. I had a math tutor, I had OT when I was younger, so I can write better, and I was in special needs classes a lot when I was younger, so to me, I was able to understand why I hate school.
I'm gonna get through this. I never knew, I don't ever remember not knowing. I'm 41. My parents found out when I was 4. So, there was a lot of emotion just living with it. This is back in 1986, 1990. What has helped is these conferences and research that is helping people find out about it. Because I now know I'm not alone. But going home, there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of, I used to really question why. Or, I used to question, okay, what would my life be like if I found out later in life? But I always say, like, don't hide it. Like, your kid, but don't hide it from them. They're gonna find out one day. They're gonna either find out through a medical paper, or they can find out from you, and you can bring them here and get to know all of us and get to know everybody here, and they won't feel alone.
Thank you all so very much.
I'm gonna give one more.
I was always feeling from very young that I had something wrong. And my parents said, no, you're perfectly normal and everything else. And this was when ACC wasn't really known, even in England, because my education is from England, and it was lousy. Schools over there don't teach as well as over here. Trust me on that. I'm sorry to say that. And finally, when I was at my second boarding school, I was in a choir, and I had a nasty fainting spell, and I went right onto my chin, and it was then that the nurse said, we need to have you see a specialist. That specialist then sent me to a doctor up in London, who then sent me to a professor in Scotland, where I met Dr. Brown's friend. And he, at the end of doing all the testing, when we did, at those days, they didn't have MRIs, CAT scans, and all the stuff that we do now. He said, I'm going to give your son the choice whether or not I tell him first, you first, and then him, or all of you together. And you know what my answer was? Tell me first, and then I'll let my parents know if they're allowed to know. And I said, yes, please do. And that's when I was first. And then when I came over here, Dr. Brown and Lynn Paul were the ones who finalized it.
All right. Yeah.
My 2 cents for that one. My name, well, that's loud. My name is Tasha and I'm an adult with ACC. My mom knew when I was born because I was 3.5 months early, but she chose to never tell me to protect me. But then I found out my senior year in college where I didn't get any accommodations and I was a biology major. And I got very mad at my mom because, you know, she used to just say I was slow because I was born 3.5 months early. Well, we all know that's not the case because the corpus callosum is one of the first structures that's supposed to form in your brain. So my advice to parents is just be honest with your kids, like talk to them about their disability, but don't make it a flaw, make it their strength. Like notice their strengths and.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, next question. Okay, thank you.
I absolutely hate talking in a microphone. You guys are brave. So in the autistic community, there's a really significant pushback from autistic individuals who have had experiences with ABA. So my question for you, for any of you who may have had ABA services, what are your thoughts or feelings on this? Have you felt that it's traumatic or harmful as many of autistic individuals do, or do you have different feelings about that?
If you're sitting here asking me what's ABA, you probably haven't done it. So do any, yeah, there we go.
So I have a college degree in social work, and one of my projects was actually on ABA, applied behavioral analysis. And so when I was doing my research, I did see both the individual's perspective as well as the clinical perspective. And I found that I would lean more towards the individual's perspective more than the clinical perspective, just because, you know, it's the person you're trying to change and that kind of thing. And you're doing that with other therapies too. But I just would rather lean on the person who is actually the person receiving the therapy rather than the one, you know, researching the therapy. Anybody else?
Done it. Do we have any other of our adults in the audience that have done it and want to share?
Yeah, fine. My name is Abby Kors. I found out probably when I was diagnosed at 15 months, I believe. My parents are here, but I don't really know the age. I was super young. I've always known I've had it. My parents were very, very involved in my life. They created classes for me. I actually found out when I was 5 years old because I saw the acronym ACC and I had the book. And if it wasn't for my parents, because I don't know if we're going to be here to see the video of all the interviews, if it really wasn't for Dan and Angie Kors, I wouldn't really know anything about it. And I really struggled a lot making friends, and I'm going away with a whole new group of friends.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to stick with that last question for one more minute. Do we have any other adults that have done ABA and want to talk about it? Or any parents that want to share their experience with it? Because I think this is a great question. So if anyone else wants to add, we can.
I'll share from a parent perspective, which I think is very, very secondary to an adult's perspective, but since that had already been shared. But for us, what I really want to drive home for the newer parents is that not all ABAs are the same. And to really advocate for your child and sit in on the sessions. So when our son was young, we started ABA. It was recommended by a physical therapist. And I will say it did him wonders. He was able to, you know, attend, whatever, but sometimes we would have a therapist come into the home, and I made a point to, you know, when he was little, they would do it like separate in a room. As he got bigger, they would like push in more to the family area. When it was separate in a room, I always had the baby monitor, and there was a particular therapist, which I could tell was just getting really frustrated with my son. Tone was frustrated, and we fired her. And, you know, because I said, even though he can't speak, that tone is not lost on him. And so you are your child's best advocate. And you really, like with ABA, there are amazing ABA companies out there. And then there's overpriced babysitting that can be harmful. So everything in between. And I will say for our son, ABA has done wonders. Was able to communicate, which helped decrease his behaviors and his frustrations. And so I think it's given him a better quality of life. But I think if he had poor therapists along the way, it would have been damaging. So you really just have to advocate and be present and be watchful.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to the next question, okay?
Hi, thank you. My question is related to self-advocacy, and I was just wondering if you had any opportunities in your adolescent years to self-advocate for yourself, whether it be to your parents or schools, and also the transition, if you could speak about it as you became an adult, how has that experience been to advocate for your needs as you became an adult? Thanks.
I'm going to start by handing it over to our adult representative on the board.
So that's one of the major ways that I self-advocate for myself is I am blessed to be able to represent everybody on the stage and all the adults in the community, because a lot of them don't have a voice and don't know how to have a voice. So I have made it my mission to teach myself how to have a voice so I can help others. And so I was diagnosed before I was born, but didn't do anything until I was 24 because of a random Wikipedia search. In 1993, there was no research on ACC. So I always thought that I was just weird and quirky. But then I found this community and it was like a light bulb went off. Everything clicked. And that's when I learned you need to speak up for yourself because you don't know if somebody else has this or what's going on. And if my story can help somebody, then that's the biggest gift in the world.
I have always talked about my disorder with my job. I work for Goodwill Home Medical. I deal with a lot of children and adults that have different disabilities. I'm also a religious education teacher, so I see a lot of kids that have different disabilities as well. I've always talked about it. I'm not scared to. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I appreciate you and you and Jasmine for what you guys did this year.
Sarah's been helping a lot this weekend, which is why she's got no
I've
voice.
never lost my voice at a conference. I grew up watching my parents advocate for me a lot. They fought for me to get the services I needed, like as far as to take the school system to court. When they were refusing to give me any more services. So I took that, and as I got older and stronger, I advocated for myself through college. And now I advocate for myself in life.
I would have to say, that advocating for yourself would be good because even though your parents have been there for you to advocate for you throughout the years and also, my mom, she's been helping me trying to figure out this transportation thing, which is very helpful and trying to advocate for that, because we've been having to struggle these past I don't know, ever since I started my new job, we've been doing Metro Mobility in Minnesota, and that's like part of the Twin Cities area, but it's like not getting me, picking me up and, you know, on certain times and everything, and we're kind of thinking of switching over to Lyft. So, but, you know, and I'm thankful for her for helping me through that, and also having to advocate for myself more, especially for work, you know, for what I need to do and other things, and also for, you know, advocating too for having my own small jewelry business too. So
I'm going to cut this very short. I ended up being a school teacher, and I taught high school special education. And I have spent at that time 16 years with high school education, 16 years with special education students. And I advocated for these kids every single day because I was the one who was responsible for coordinating their help. I was coordinating their high school education through the IEP process. So therefore, I spent years working on the IEP process for these children, especially when they became 11th and 12th graders. The state mandates a transition program for all of these kids. So therefore, I worked on numerous transition programs while also advocating for children whose parents, I had one child, very simple, I had one child whose mother kept losing her ID card. So I had to go personally to the agency and get the ID card. So therefore, it is extremely important for high school age students to have a strong advocate in their parents, also a strong advocate in their IEP team, because the IEP team is what controls the education of special education students. I know because I did this for 16 years.
I'm sure all of you guys can relate that asking for help is not easy. But I'm grateful to be in, I'm a preschool teacher and I have a teaching team, and I'm around a bunch of people that like, they know some of the signs if I'm feeling overstimulated. I've gotten a lot of great help with like script. So I can say like, hey, I can ask a teacher to switch with me for if a child's overstimulating me, or if I know that this child's gonna have more success with this other teacher in helping them, regulate themselves. I, had an unfortunate experience in my youth of I didn't really see any help until middle school when I dealt with like a trauma and grief. But if that's what it's unfortunate that that's what it took to finally see the support that I needed in school. But once I saw that, I was able to even find that like one school that I went to didn't have the resources, wasn't doing the things that I needed them to do. So my dad was able to help me find a new school that IEP team helped me graduate. They helped me survive the rest of my high school, and I'm very grateful to them for that.
Maybe one or two more.
One of the things that I am doing, I'm an advocate for people with disabilities and other things. And one of the messages that I do tell parents, please, whenever you speak to your teachers or anything medical or staff of any kind, keep hold of everything they give you. Because when the kid leaves high school, the state will actually, if they find out you haven't done this, they will actually cut you off, your child off from ever getting any more supports. And it takes 3 to 8 years to get those supports back. And it takes also lawyers. And there are lawyers that do it for nothing, and there are lawyers that do it for things.
I'm gonna, as a clinical psychology student in training doing assessments, I'm gonna say, please keep hold of these things. It makes our life so much easier when we have past reports. So I agree with that. Thank you. All right, one more.
I think the biggest advocate I have for me is my dad, my family, and everybody here. I think the person I want to recognize is the one to my right-hand side. She's the first one that came up to me back in 2008 when I first met her, which was my very first conference. So Sarah, thank you.
While we're celebrating Sarah, I would, yeah, all right, let me pause. Oh,
No,
you do it, you do it. This is what you do it.
but since I keep forgetting, I have 515 days sober.
Want to go next?
Sure. So question about maybe your dad's and being pushed. So my son will go through very long periods of time where nothing is you don't see a lot of progress for a long time. And then at some point, dad gets frustrated and just focuses on one thing. I recall even one point, tears, but we were able to get him to cross his midline to put on a seatbelt. And now he doesn't remember it or whatever. And he has, these extra capabilities that were born out of dad's frustration. So my question is how to balance that, or is it worth going through the frustration to have a new capacity? How does dad measure this without being traumatic?
For me, like I said, I hated school. I challenged my dad specifically a lot and my mom because I tried to give up. But he gave me time and patience and never really let me give up because of my parents, my dad, and my family, my brothers and sisters. I graduated high school in 2010, and I look back at that time and I think that if I didn't have the parents and the family I have, I wouldn't have graduated high school when I did.
Practice does not make perfection, it makes progress. So keep pushing. Progress is not linear. So you may not see, like if you're trying to get someone to cross a midline, it may not happen overnight. But if you keep practicing it and keep pushing and keep encouraging, it'll work.
Also, if I know for me, I did not really respond like the doctors were saying earlier about like having anger against anger or frustration. I did not respond well to that. So I would say if you need to step away and then come back to it to, best handle the situation at hand if they're not doing what you want them to do at the time. And that sort of thing. So that was one thing I really struggled with my dad. So I just want to make sure that that was said.
Just to kind of quote a little bit of your own question, you mentioned how that you feel overwhelmed. My statement to you would be every moment of progress, no matter how small, no matter how little it seems, don't necessarily see it as an overwhelm, see it as a point of pride for you and for your son. Because, well, yes, you may have pushed him to have that moment of pride. He will always remember that from the moment that he did to the moment that and you say to him, hey, can you try that again? Hey, can you try that again? See that as a sense of pride for yourself because you are actually helping him to be who he can be.
Well, I think you just have to like give them time and I know for me growing up, I know having a dad is precious and everything. I know they would have to be really hard on you. Because you're gonna be end up having like one parent can be easy and then the other one can be hard on you. But you know, just take it day by day and just love on them even though it's going to be a struggle and there are going to be times but it's going to be okay. So
I think we've got time for one more question.
Thank you. I'm all of a sudden realized how tiny I was compared. So a couple of you had mentioned earlier about a little bit about outbursts. And one of the most challenging things for our daughter, especially as she's getting larger, is the outburst and emotional dysregulation. What would you say was more helpful in those moments where you were way dysregulated, maybe even physically causing disruption, like knocking things over? Because things like breathing tactics and woosas don't always work for our kiddos, it seems. And I would love to hear your guys' input from experiencing that and not causing you guys more trauma in that process as well.
How old is your kid? I remember when I was a kid and I would just have, like, I just get really upset and so upset, like my mom or my parent would get right down in my face, not like in my face, but eye to eye. And and like look me in the eye and they would act like I couldn't talk. And they would say, like, can you talk? And I would shake my head no. I mean, a lot of this was caused by change, like quick change. And I've learned a lot of dialectical behavioral therapy, which I hear some of you have already heard about that I know. And that has helped with emotional regulation. I do believe that they do have a kid's version of that. I mean, it's helped me wonders.
In to dysregulate a sensory system, coming from an OT perspective, I would engage a lot of heavy work, like pushing things, or like a weighted blanket, or if you have a dog, have them lay on top of you, because that really helps in dysregulating the sensory system, where they don't have to talk and express their feelings, but they can let out a whole lot of energy that way.
It's more like, I know those tactics, but in the moments where she's so dysregulated that
she's not very good at Lauren, like, she's just in like grade. So it's like, obviously those can be taught and they'll learn those over time, but in those moments, like what can you do when they're so far gone? And it's almost a safety issue too, like, and I don't want her to be more traumatized from like, not restraining, holding her from doing things or getting her somewhere to. Have the moment.
Right.
I know we have a
It sounds
few.
like you're doing everything correctly, though. I mean,
I know we have quite a few parents and people in the audience that work with this and do that. Could I have, if you're in the audience, can you raise your hand so that she knows who you are? I know we've got at least a couple. Okay. Yeah, we've got Catherine over there, and I know we've got someone else that does some emotion regulation stuff. Or you can come talk to me after too. But I'd say we've definitely got some people that can chat with you more about that. So yeah, come grab me and we can find people for you.
I would say just give it time. My parents, like I said before, was not gonna let me give up. Yeah, I did, but my sister, but she understood that when I was younger, I had a very bad anger issue, and I released my frustration with not really throwing things, but biting her, and I don't remember anything else besides that. Just give her time, let her calm herself down somehow, and just be there if she needs you.
We're running out of time, so we'll do maybe one or two more. Yeah.
I don't have a lot of memories of how my parents really helped me through like outbursts and stuff. I know I kind of would always, I mostly gravitated towards just taking time for myself, like giving myself space. So that's good. Also, as a preschool teacher, coming from a preschool teacher perspective, one tactic that I have in my classroom, because even neurotypical children will have outbursts and like need to, basically our tactic is to redirect their energy. Like, okay, this little space here where there's so many friends or there's this dangerous objects around, it's not the space for you to be running around or doing this. Let's go outside and like just move this energy in a different direction, or let's squeeze this pillow instead. Yeah.
I like whenever like these outbursts or whatever, like my mom would even sometimes like I think probably during like middle school or high school too, but she would always try to make me and my niece go to our rooms just to calm down because like it can get pretty heated sometimes, but you just have to go and cool down. So, you know.
One more, and then I've been asked to hand this over to Lynn.
When I was 6, 5, 6, 7, I would have outbursts because it would build up in me. It would build up in me, and eventually I would just shout it. I would just do something. I would just do something. And that lasted for quite a while. And it would just build up. So I would watch your child to see whether it is building up in them, and check your child's, just check your child to see whether it is building up in them, because that is what, after a while, I grew out, surprisingly, I grew out of it. But for when I was in school, it would build up, and all of a sudden in class, I would burn out something, and then it would go down, and then a month or two later, it would build up again, and I would burn out something. So therefore, I would check your child for this kind of buildup so that you can alleviate the pressure cooker, which is what I ended up having.
Thank you. All right, we're out of time, but I just want to say, like, it is not easy to stand up here or sit up here and talk about this. And I'm so proud of you all. And just thank you for volunteering and doing this.
I just want to. Okay. See how we are? We've been this way forever. I just want to thank all of you because when we did this the first time, it was Sarah and Matt Schillemuller, and it was just the two of you, the only adults with DCC that we knew who could tell their story. And for the past 15 years, I've gone in and met with you all time and time again and did question and answer time. And watching how your questions have changed and how your courage to come up to me and ask questions and your sense of personal responsibility for yourselves and advocacy and owning your holes in the sidewalk and managing them and teaching other kids how to do that is just awe-inspiring. And I love the way you support each other and the community that you have. And I really encourage you to just carry on and bring in the younger ones as they come up so that they have a place to land and role models. And my last comment here is, did she just run out of the room, Jasmine? Okay. Oh, she's cute. Be careful. Vincenzo's the future.
Oh, this is Vincenzo. He's 4 months old. And one day you're going to be up here telling your story. aren't you? Yeah, you tell everyone. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
And the other part of this that is just my own personal joy as somebody who never gave birth and didn't have a kid, seeing you did this. This is the next generation of researchers and advocates, and you've got a good one here. So treat her well.
To piggyback, Lynn, thank you so much to Jasmine for running this program, for all the adults that came out and were vulnerable with us and talked with all of us. Our appreciation. Love you guys.